What does the future hold for the silver price and the gold price? We have some new information that we're going to learn today. There was a great conversation between three luminaries, three of the recognized leaders, legends within the precious metals sector. Robert Friedland, Frank Giestra, and Pierre Lassonde. All three of them have been in the precious metal sector for decades, have made tens of millions, if not billions of dollars. They understand what's going on, and they shared some amazing insights that we're going to analyze today and learn a few new things that many of us haven't thought of on our own. And that's what we do. We share information, we put it all together, look at the big picture, and develop our own thesis about where the silver price and gold price are headed. I remain very bullish. I remain very optimistic. I'll do another live stream a little bit later today where we talk about what's going on right now. We have pain in the market. We have the Fed announcement yesterday. We have major moves in the gold price and silver price, but was that to be expected? We'll talk about that. I will just briefly touch on the fact, guys, it is so critical right now to keep our eye on the 10-year bond yield. And I looked this morning, it's approaching 4.5%. It's not been that high in like 15 years, 16 years. Don't worry, we're going to get into this discussion about the future of gold and silver, but I just want us to touch on this 10-year bond yield very briefly, okay? And then we'll talk about the digital dollar, the digital gold, where the gold price and silver price are going, what these three luminaries said. But when we have a 4.5% 10-year bond yield, that is devastating for the banks. That is devastating for real estate. Do you know where mortgage rates are going to head? That is devastating for the government, and it's devastating for companies, businesses out there that have to borrow money just to maintain their current operations. So things are looking dicey, and I've got a whole bevy of information I'm going to share later on. Let's talk about right now what these three luminaries see in the gold market that is so interesting and new information to a lot of us, okay? Number one, we talked about Japan. Japan has had record gold prices lately, a record demand for gold. That's being recognized by these leaders, okay? The Japanese are gold crazy all of a sudden. And why is that a big deal, you may ask? Who cares? We don't really remember back in the 80s? A lot of you are my age. Everybody was afraid of Japan. Remember, Japan was going to take over the world. There was a lot of, you could almost say, bias against the Japanese. They were taking American jobs. They were buying up New York real estate. What was it? Times Square? Not Times Square. You can't buy Times Square. What's that place called with the ice skating rink? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. Everybody was afraid of the Japanese. And over the last 10 or 15 years, have you noticed the whole, any attention on Japan has kind of faded away? Japan is the third largest economy in the world. Japan has all-time record demand for gold, okay? Japanese people have gone gold crazy. You know why? This is the big key takeaway in this because of inflation, inflation, inflation. It's not just in the U.S. We've had the benefit of a strong dollar over the last year and a half, 2 years. Okay, other places in the world, do you think we've had inflation with a strong dollar? Other countries in the world, their currencies have gone down. Their inflation has been much, much worse. So what are the Japanese doing? This is it. This is the key to silver and gold. The Japanese people are looking and saying, well, where do I go with my money if I want to protect myself against inflation? And they're looking at gold and silver. And soon, do you think maybe, do you think possibly that could be the situation in the United States? I mean, really, it's going to happen. It's going to happen here as well. Next, we went on to China in this discussion. Again, this was Robert Friedland, billionaire. Okay, this is Frank Giestra. He started Gold Corp, started Lionsgate Entertainment. This guy knows gold. And this was Pierre Lassonde, Franco-Nevada. Okay, he invented the Lassonde curve. They started talking about China and gold. Now, there's something we need to talk about because everybody's making, you've heard it, right? Have you heard all the drama? The Shanghai Gold Exchange. I'm guilty as well. I'm talking about it all the time. The price differentiation for gold between China and the Western countries. Yes. 1 point last week, silver also was 13% higher in Shanghai. Nonetheless, we got to throw a little cold water on that argument because they all brought up a very pertinent point. The NYMEX, which is somehow associated with the COMEX, that's the electronic exchange here in the United States where gold is traded, still dwarfs the Shanghai Gold Exchange. However, the Shanghai Gold Exchange, and we can't say this enough, is much more of a physical market. That means they're not trading paper silver, paper gold, unicorn fart dust is what we like to refer to it as. All right. Hey, please give me a thumbs up. I'm going to beg you 3 more times. I'm going to be quick. Press the thumbs up button. That helps us get the word out to more people. Shanghai is trading real metal. All right. That's a big difference, not make believe. Now, they all talked about how, yes, eventually the Eastern countries will overtake the Western price discovery mechanism, right? The LBMA in London, England, and the NYMEX and the COMEX here in the United States. What's super interesting, and this is new information, and this made my toes curl when I heard this one. I had no idea. Since 1995, there has been 46,000 metric tons of gold that has moved from the west to the east. What is that telling us? Does that tell us anything about what's going on? And of course, we talked about BRICS and what's going on with the BRICS, but 46, guys, you know how much gold the United States supposedly has at Fort Knox here in the United States? Supposedly, we have 8,000 ounces. That's almost 6 times the amount of gold that we have in Fort Knox that has moved from the west to the east. It's getting super interesting. Now, look, these luminaries, what else did they talk about? Of course, they talked about the central bank buying of gold, and it's almost all been by, who do you think? The BRICS countries. What is that telling us? It's telling us it's a very complicated geopolitical situation that's unfolding right now in the world. Okay? Talking about gold-backed currencies, and all 3 of them had differing opinions. However, it's almost become an accepted concept that we are going to see a gold-backed centrally controlled currency. The world just is moving in that direction. Now, it's complicated, and it's not a clear road how we're going to get there, but when we get a central currency that's backed by gold, that will be explosive for the gold price and the silver price. Do you agree with that? Do you see that? That's what the top people that are out there analyzing what's going on right now absolutely see. Now, there's a big difference also, guys. This is key for us to understand. There is a big difference. We talk about a gold-backed currency. Are we talking about a reserve currency? Or are we talking about a trade currency? There's a difference. A reserve currency is the currency that central banks will hold in their treasury, right, as an asset, as something of value, to store value for their country. A trade currency is what's used as trade amongst countries. The U.S. dollar has been dominant on both of those fronts, and nobody's saying that it's imminent that tomorrow or next week the dollar's going away. It could. Anything could happen, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the video. What Robert Friedland, you maybe don't know who Robert Friedland is, but he's a super intelligent, super successful guy who has started several unbelievably successful mining companies. He doesn't do a lot of interviews, so he's not plastered all over YouTube. Maybe once every 2 or 3 months he will speak, and he is smart, and he had something critical to say about the U.S. dollar. And these guys weren't agreeing with each other during this conversation or debate they had. And by the way, that was on Stansberry Research, with Daniela Camboni. I believe it was at the recent gold conference, one of the gold conferences out in Colorado. I'd highly recommend you listen to it. It is a 30-minute nugget of information about what is transpiring in the world. What does this mean? The World Gold Council right now is working on a gold-backed digital currency. The World Gold Council, that controls and funded by many of the top mining companies in the world, is working on facilitating a gold-backed digital currency. Now, what's going to be critical about a gold-backed digital currency? Number one, it's going to require that a lot of gold be purchased to back it. But what's going to be critical about a gold-backed digital currency is that it is audited, it is transparent, it is convertible, right? That you know that whatever token or whatever they call it, unit that you have represents an amount of gold or silver or platinum that's actually stored somewhere in a vault, right? And have you noticed, what do you see when you piece together what's going on in the world right now? There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of tension, right? And what can we surmise when we look at what's going on? People aren't trusting each other. What's something that they could trust in terms of a store of value? If we're not going to trust rubles or dollars or yen or euros or a real or any of the other major currencies, that's my question. Think about that. What can you trust? What's been around for thousands of years? You know the answer. Silver, gold, platinum. They've always had their value, and they will absolutely continue to hold their value as well. So does it surprise you, or can you envision a point in the future where there's at least that option to have a gold-backed currency, a gold-backed digital currency? But again, it is so critical that it be regulated and that it be transparent so that the holders of the currency can believe in it and know that for whatever unit they own. I don't like using that word token. It makes me feel like I'm talking about cryptocurrency, which is a completely different thing. This is not cryptocurrency. And boy, oh boy, these guys attacked crypto. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. This is not crypto. This is a gold-backed digital currency that for each unit, right? You have one unit of this currency. Maybe it represents a gram of gold. Maybe it represents an ounce of gold, however they set it up, but that it actually represents physical metal that's being held somewhere that if you want to convert your unit of this digital currency back into metal, all you have to do is show up and say, here I am, I want to convert this, and they'll give you your metal. That could be the future of money in this country. Okay? And all three of these guys agreed with this idea that, like it or not, okay, and you may say, if you don't hold it, you don't. I wait before you attack me for saying a gold-backed digital currency. That doesn't mean, okay, all right, settle down, right? We all need to settle down because I'm the same way. That doesn't mean that you still can't hold physical metal. You still can do the old, if you don't hold it, you don't own it routine. You can still have physical metal in your possession. Nobody's saying they're going to outlaw your ability to hold physical metal. What they are saying is that a digital option, that digital money is the future. CBDC or otherwise, we're going to digital money, like it or not. We're moving away from cash. Kiss your cash goodbye. One of them, I believe, said maybe 3 years, or maybe it was another analyst I was listening to. Some people say 5 years. I think within 5 years, I'm 80% confident that within 5 years, cash, paper money won't work anymore, won't be worth anything. All right. And when we move to that digital world, the silver lining and all that could easily be that the actual physical metal, it's going to be the last bastion of financial privacy, the last bastion of being able to store wealth on a private basis. People could be rushing to get into the metals. On top of all the other factors that we talk about ad nauseum, the financial screwed up situation that we have here in the United States on a government, banking, business, consumer level, right? All those reasons why the dollar is in big trouble. But nonetheless, if they move us away from the paper dollar, from currency, people could be rushing into metals there could be a massive confluence of factors. And all this could unfold within the next 10 years. I'm going to beg you for the second time, please give this a thumbs up. Now, if you want to get yourself some physical metal, go with a company you can trust. I'd recommend you check out Pimbex. Do your own research. Read reviews. I can tell you, I've used Pimbex. You can buy silver, gold, platinum. They're a family-owned company. They've got the best prices around, on top of all the other great attributes. Before you buy metal, you want to be comfortable with the company and trust the company that you're buying the metal from. That's paramount. And then you want to get the best price. For me, Pimbex checks both those boxes. Check them out for yourself. Now, Robert Friedland. I'm telling you guys, this guy is great. I think he actually hung around with Steve Jobs. Excuse me, back in the 70s. He's a metals mogul. He had some crazy, interesting things to say that directly relate to silver, gold, and platinum, copper as well. But he has some insights that will that were, in my opinion, I'm looking at my list of words, thought-provoking. How do you like that? Thought-provoking. Okay? He said this right off the bat, because these guys, people will argue. How do you feel? How do you feel when people talk about the demise of the U.S. dollar? Right, the dollar's going away, de-dollarization. We're even hearing that from the big companies like Goldman Sachs. The world is, the whole story. The BRICS, and then the other 6 countries that are joining them. Everybody's moving away from the dollar. Right? How do you feel when you hear that? Because then you hear people, and they've got a valid point, saying the dollar's not going anywhere. The dollar's Tina. There's no other alternative. I don't know. It's Stantina, something like that. There's no alternative. The dollar's not going. But Robert Friedland had something that I agree with 100%. Said nothing lasts forever. Right? The Romans had a currency. There's been tons of fiat currencies that have been around, and nothing lasts forever. Right? Now, then, okay, what about crypto? What about Bitcoin? What, because that's the other argument that, when the paper currency goes away, people will store their wealth in Bitcoin. People will, and there's 2 big keys that we need to consider with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a solution looking for a problem, and it's totally electronic. Robert Friedland brought up the point. We don't like war, however I'm supposed to say it. We don't like violence, but there's weapons now called EMPs, electromagnetic pulse weapons. They've been around for a while. They can blow one up over the skies and immediately wipe out everything electronic, including our phones, including anything, with microchips and whatnot, that so easily things like Bitcoin could be wiped out in an instant with one of these types of weapons. So the idea that Bitcoin's the answer, right? And Bitcoin we've been in a crypto winter anyway, that it beats gold as a long-term store of value. I mean, how long has Bitcoin been around? 12 years? Roughly, let's say 10 years. How long have gold and silver been around? 5,000 years? That's like 1/500th. That's like less than what is that? That's like 20% of 1% of the time. 1/500th. So the whole argument that Bitcoin is this answer that's going to replace gold, yeah, and they were laughing, right? Okay, well, if that's the case, why the heck are the world central banks accumulating so much gold? And this is one of the points that I had never thought of and maybe you've never thought of this either when it comes to gold. And when we talk about gold, we're talking about silver, we're talking about platinum and palladium as well. Thank you for all 200 of you. Right now, I got some good news for you about the precious metals we're going to get to right now. But thank you for being here. Please give this a thumbs up so we can get to 100 thumbs up, and I'll ring the bell 10 times. Now, have you thought about this? Most of the gold in the world, the easy gold, has already been mined, all right? And what the miners have right now, right? What the miners produce on an annual basis, what the miners have in the ground as defined resources is a minuscule amount compared to all the gold that's already above ground and being hoarded by central banks, by you. Are you hoarding the gold? Are you one of the gold hoarders? I hadn't really thought about that, right? There's all this gold, and we're going to talk about silver as well. Right? There's all this gold, but when you compare the amount of gold above ground to the amount that the miners have in the ground and the amount that they produce on an annual basis, I think they add like 1% per year to the total. So as a store of value and from a scarcity perspective, you really cannot argue with the precious metals. Okay. And then Robert Friedland brought up a great point. He said there are oceans of fiat money. He didn't say fiat, but I'll say fiat. Oceans of paper, electronic, digital money in the world right now, okay, looking for anything real that they can buy. Be that silver, be that gold, be that platinum, be that oil, be it land, whatever. There's a limited supply of real things in the world. That whole list I just spouted off for you. But there's an unlimited supply, guys, an absolute unlimited supply of paper money, debt, digital money, all of that as well. And inflation is real and it's not going anywhere. Now let's just touch on silver, right? We talked about gold, the amount of gold above ground. Silver is very interesting as well. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for being here, my friend. Silver, there's a huge debate out there. How much silver is above ground? You've got all different levels of estimation in terms of how much above ground silver there is. Some people say there's less above ground silver than there is gold. Some people say there's much more. The guy, what's his name? Jeffrey Christian from the CPM group would argue that any talk about a silver shortage is just somebody who's trying to sell you silver, that it's all a big fake mirage. Although Jeff Christian, if I heard him correctly, does think that we should get much higher silver prices during 2024. Nonetheless, the situation with silver when compared to gold is so much better. I mean, don't forget, silver is a monetary. Ross Beatty called it a schizophrenic metal the other day. It's a monetary metal. It's an investment metal. It's a store of value metal. Right here. You want to see some silver? I haven't showed you this one for a while. This awesome bar. Little silver, 1 ounce silver bar. That's a store of value. That's a battery. Bald Guy from Bald Guy Money brought up that great point. This stores value. Right? This is an ounce of silver. I could get somebody to work for me for an hour. You know, it's like a battery that stores value. Now, on top of that, silver obviously has these unbelievable industrial applications. You know that whole story. I'll just giggle because you can go over it in your head. Solar, electron, all that. All right. But the amount of silver that's being mined is decreasing every year, decreasing, while at the same time, the amount of silver that's being consumed is increasing. So the silver argument is even more crazy positive when we look out into the future. All right, let's take a look at look at everybody who's here. Debbie, Dinar, can anybody see the hot dog? I hid the hot dog today. I don't know if it's on the camera, though. Today's a very hard hide the hot dog. So if you see the hot dog, I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere over there. Let me know. Hello, Neil. Good to see you. Hello, Jake. Man, Ricky's House of Crap. Yeah, guys, we have got to keep our eye right now on this 10-year bond yield. Right before I came on, it was 4.47. Don't forget that, like, when it got to 4.16 back in March and April, we had a official banking crisis in this country. And I'm going to rip into Jerome Powell at my 11 o'clock. We're going to do another live stream at 11 o'clock. That was scheduled, but we're going to rip. But nonetheless, this 10-year bond yield at 4.47, the banks are already on life support. They're in some degree. Some of them are in the hospice ward. Some of them are in intensive care. Some of them are in regular rooms. And very few of them are in rehab getting ready to get released from the hospital. The banks are on life support, but it's not just the banks. What about the real estate market? We're getting new highs in the 10-year bond yield. Mortgage rates are going to top 8%. 8%. I remember when I bought my first little condo back in 1994, I paid 8%. I look back and I thought that was crazy high interest rate when I bought that place. The real estate market is already on shaky ground. I have a neighbor who walks by. I see him about once a week. He's been in real estate for 25 years. He says it's shaky, okay? Shaky. We could be heading for some horrible times in the real estate market. These people who are buying, I'm not giving financial advice, but I'll tell you, I would not buy a house right now because the demand for housing, I don't care how low the supply is, they both came down, right? We had huge demand and pretty decent supply. Now we've got supply that came way down, but demand is still hovering there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would stay away from buying and don't bank on the fact that just because there's a house I've got a house for sale in my neighborhood for $650,000. I'm like, what? These houses sold for $250 or $300 3 years ago. And I thought that was high. Now you're telling me $650, right? Don't bank on in your head, be prepared for everything and anything. And if you're a consumer and you have credit card debt, get yourself out of credit, because not real estate, the consumer is on the ropes. You know the story. If you're an American, right? And it's probably true, and I read it's true in the United Kingdom as well, right? If you're a normal, average person, you don't have any money left in the bank. You've got a record high credit card balance, right? You're maybe taking money out of your 401k just to live, right? So you got the banks on the life support. You got the consumer on the life support. You got real estate on the life support. And, the guys last night, right? Friedland, Giestra, and Pierre Lasson, they all talked about this as well. Our government is on life support. I'm not going to make any comments about our president, okay? But as a whole, our government is on life support, spending $1.4 trillion more than they're bringing in. These rates are huge. The government it has to refinance like over half of this $33 trillion debt within the next 2 years. They're currently paying like 1 or 2% interest, and now they're going to be paying like 5, maybe higher percent interest the way things are going. That would be like you. I want you to pay attention to this so you can grasp how critical this is, how critical. That would be like you buying a house for $500,000, okay? And you got a 2% mortgage on it, but your mortgage only lasts for like 4 years, and you bought it 2 years ago. So now you've got to refinance that mortgage, and instead of paying 2%, you're going to pay 6%. It could really screw you up. It could make your payment double or more, and that's what's going to happen to the U.S. government. The payments on the interest for the $33 trillion in debt, guys, that's a real number. Okay, I know it's hard. Peter Grandich says, 20 years ago, trillion, I didn't even know what a trillion was. Right now, that's a real number. The interest that our government's paying is skyrocketing. I think it's almost $1 trillion a year right now. This is like a doom loop. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news. The good news is silver and gold. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Silver and gold. And by the way, quickly, I want to thank our other channel sponsor, First Mining Gold. That's a stock I have owned for years and years and years, made videos about the company for years and years. They've got 2 huge gold development projects in Canada. Both have 5 million ounces each. I'm going to tell you one interesting thing. They're a development company. This is gold in the ground, already been defined. I'm going to tell you an interesting fact about what's going on in the gold mining industry and why development companies, which have been beaten to a pulp, I think represent a great value. And that is that these big mining companies, even at $1,900 gold like we have right now, they are printing cash. They have record cash flow. They have unbelievably healthy. They've paid off all their debt. But when they paid off all their debt, okay, they neglected their pipeline of new projects. And gold mining companies, every time they dig an ounce of gold or silver out of the ground, it's a depleting asset. They're going to need to replace it. It's like a supply chain. And soon, here in the next couple of years, they're going to be needing to get major big projects. And First Mining, look, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do know they've got a couple huge projects in Canada, and they've got 4 other projects as well. So anyway, thank you to First Mining for their sponsorship. If you want more information, reach out to Paul Morris. He's their Director of Investor Relations. You can email him, paul@firstmininggold.com. All right, enough of that. Jake's Custom Parts. I appreciate you being here and moderating this morning as I ramble on with what I find to be just very, very interesting situations developing out there in the market. Hey guys, I appreciate you being here. We are heading into new territory. Don't forget what President Xi said to Putin the last time they met in person. They said, we are in a period of change like no other during our lifetimes, and we are leading the charge. The world is changing like never before, right now below our very feet. We have chosen to pull our heads out of the sand and look around, right? Nobody has an absolute right or wrong answer. You can't expect yourself that, but the more we look, the more we learn, the more we communicate, the more we're open to kind of seeing things as they are in the world, the more likely we'll be able to protect ourselves and protect our families, protect the wealth that we have accumulated. And that's what we really want to do. We want safety for ourselves. We got to be safe first, and our families and our loved ones and our friends, and it's on top of that, I don't know about you. Let me ask you a question, and I want you to answer this in the chat. Do you find these subjects interesting? BRICS, gold, CBDC, all that stuff. Say yes or no if you find these things interesting. I'm just curious. Hello, CM. Hello, Jim McDaniel. It's been a while, my friend. Good to see you. Hello, Count Derpula. 2 billion. Hi. Yes, we got a yes. From Julie Alexander. Of course, says Otta Guy. Jake's Custom Parts finds this interesting. That's great to hear. Craister, yes. Connecticut. Tree Care, yes. Interesting and important. Debbie, yes. Debbie Wynn. Now I know I asked Debbie, I couldn't pronounce that. I say Njuendren, and it's Debbie Wynn. And it's important we know how to pronounce each other's names. Matt. Congress needs to balance the budget. No more paychecks. Oh yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, my friend. I mean, what does it mean to you? Let me ask you a question. How screwed up, absolutely crazy, unbelievable financial situation in this country, right? Totally screwed up. Bad news. Your children, your grandchildren are in for some very challenging. Those numbers are real. $33 trillion, $1.4 trillion deficit, $1 trillion interest expense right now. And they have a Republican debate. Okay, this is not a political show. I'm not Democrat, Republican, anything. But they have a Republican presidential debate, and it's generally accepted that the Republicans are more conservative, more fiscally responsible. And they basically don't even mention, in the Republican presidential debate, they don't even mention anything about spending. It was like number 12 on the list of what they talked about, and it was a fraction of the time in the debate that was spent talking about fiscal issues, spending here in the United States. To me, it's just absolutely crazy, frustrating. It makes me mad, that's how our country is being. I mean, come on. Let me ask you a question. If you managed your personal finances in the same manner that the government manages their finances, you'd be broke. You'd be in big trouble. But for some reason, it's okay for our leaders, quote unquote, to just completely screw everything up. So, all right, guys, thank you for being here. I'll be back, in an hour and 40 minutes, but I'm going to dig in, and it's going to be a little brutal because we're going to talk about Jerome. We're going to talk about what's going on in the gold and silver market in relation to what the Fed did yesterday. Our old friend Jerome Powell, he did exactly what I thought he would do. And I'm not saying, I'm the all-knowing, I got it all figured out, I have a crystal ball, because I don't. But I will say, in this circumstance, he did exactly what I anticipated, and I got some good news. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to these metals, but I think when we take a step back and look at what's going on with the Fed and with interest rates and with the economy, and we call the Fed for what they actually are, we've got some reason for optimism. I'll see you guys a little bit later. Thank you, Jake. I appreciate it. Thank you, Neil. Okay, you guys have a great rest of your morning, and I'll see you. I'll be back. If you want to torture yourself some more, I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.